What is good, everybody? I know Mike isn't connected here. I look a little different. We got some radio difficulties today, but the live stream is still going strong. Yes, we are, everybody. How are we doing today after an insane weekend of sports that we had here? This is Logan. This is the Log Show, and we're getting underway here. And man, do we got a lot to talk about. Like I just said, week two was very, very, very exciting. It was a lot of high scoring games, a lot of overtime games, a lot of very interesting stuff that happened throughout this game or this week that really, really shocked me. Now, a lot of overtime games, a lot of stuff like that. It was a very interesting week. I didn't do great betting. We'll get into that. Not only that, this past weekend we got UFC Noche, as they call it, UFC Fight Night on Mexican Heritage Day, which they like to call it UFC Noche. We had a bunch of Mexican fighters, a bunch of Spanish fighters. It was an exciting night, and I very much do want to talk about that UFC Fight Night that happened this past weekend, especially the main event. I do want to talk about all the fights. The Kevin Holland fight, that was entertaining. I do agree with the decision that made that Della Maddalena won. It was a very, very interesting fight. Kevin Holland is a brawler, always puts on the best, always will put up competition, but against a talent like Jack Della Maddalena, who I think is going to compete for welterweight gold soon, Kevin Holland definitely fell short in that fight. The Raul Rosas Jr. fight was an absolute stunner with an early knockout, hit him with a beautiful, beautiful straight, a quick early knockout for Raul Rosas Jr., and he is able to get the finish and get a big, big, big win. Not only that, now we get into the main event that is. The main event that is today, that was Alex, was Alex, wow, was Valentina Shevchenko. I apologize for messing that up. Was Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso 2. And man, was this one a back and forth brawl. I personally think, I don't know, man. This one going down to a draw. It's the first draw I've ever watched live. I mean, I'm a huge UFC fan, but it is the first draw that I had happened to ever see live. And my, oh my, was this one entertaining. It was back and forth the whole time. At the beginning of the fight, you see Valentina really had her grasp, but then Grasso caught her early, knocked her down. I think that was I want to say that was in like the second or third round where Grasso got her knocked down. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with the decision of a draw. I think Shevchenko might have won the fight. I saw the judges' cards, and the judges' cards said that it ended up being like it was 10-9 Shevchenko, 10-9 Grasso, 10-9 Grasso, 10-9 Shevchenko, and then a lot of them had 10-9 Shevchenko at the end there. Some of them had a 10-9 for Grasso. Or no, a lot of people had it 3-2. 3-2, I think. Yeah, 3-2 because Grasso had such a good round, though. That last round, and a lot of people had her winning 10-9 in that last round, but a lot of people had rounds 1, 3, and 4 to Shevchenko. Easy. And I will be honest, she did. But Grasso put up such a good performance in that fifth round, in that championship round, that a lot of people liked what they saw out of her. She was dominant. In my opinion, was it this great 10-8 round? I don't know about all that, but it definitely was a very, very, very good round for Alexa Grasso for her to at least push it to a draw and retain her title, which is huge for her and huge for that division going up. She feels like she's top dog in that division, and on a big UFC, maybe that played into it. Maybe it was Mexican Heritage Night. Maybe it was that whole UFC Noche thing going down And that's what happened. But I didn't feel that that is what happened. I felt that she put on a very, very, very well put together and a very good. I'm sorry for this glare behind me, but very, very good performance and a very good last round. I personally had Shevchenko winning. I thought Shevchenko retained her belt. Apparently not, according to the judges. One of the judges gave her that 10-8 and it squeezed her out in an absolute one of the best fights I've ever seen in like not that it was just it wasn't this brawl, it wasn't this beatdown, it wasn't anything like that, but it was close. And it was just I had no idea who was going to win that fight the whole entire way through, and my God, was it entertaining. Like I said, we got a lot coming up. I saw something that after this would on every main UFC event, every numbered UFC event, UFC blah blah blah, blah blah blah, 294, 295, 293, all those. In the past 4 of them, the blue corner has won. Why am I saying this? You might be asking. Why am I saying that? Because upcoming is the fight of Islam Makhachev versus my man, Dual Bronx, Charles Oliveira. And man, will that one be interesting. That one will be so much fun to watch. So entertaining. I really want Charles to win. That's why I said that stat. I think he can win. I think he has this Islam plan down. And that coming up October 21st, right as UFC 5 starts to roll out. Oh my God, as a UFC fan, that end of October, early November with Jon Jones is going to be blessed. It is going to be a blessing, folks. It is going to be an absolute blessing, folks. And I cannot wait to watch it. Now, I do want to get into what I love the best. Good old NFL. And week 2, like I was saying, to lead off this show was an absolute doozy. Week 2 was a doozy, man. Just to get my rundown of week 2 before I get into specifics, you Giants fans get a huge win in Arizona, down 20-0 at halftime. I remember posting it on my story that the Giants were outscored 60-0 through 6 quarters of football. I remember my jaw being on the floor about that, being like, there's no way the New York Football Giants are playing this bad of football. And by God, they were. But what a second half out of them. Monday night was entertaining. There seems to be a Monday night curse. In the past 3 Monday night games, it's the Damar Hamlin game, Aaron Rodgers, and now Nick Chubb. I hope he gets better. Speedy recovery for him in such a disgusting, gruesome injury and an unavoidable hit. I saw a lot of people going online really ripping Minkah Fitzpatrick, who also got injured in that game, by the way. I hope a speedy recovery for him. Someone else who ended up in the hospital that night. But a lot of people are talking about that. I will get into this injury. Chubb's injury proves big for Cleveland. You end up with an injury like that. They signed Kareem Hunt, which is huge, and he's expected to play next week, to play on Thursday. Or is it Thursday or Sunday they play? I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe they play Sunday, actually. I don't know why I said Thursday. The Giants play Thursday. But so, yeah. So Kareem Hunt is expected to play this Sunday for the Browns, and that's a great pickup for them. Someone who fits in well. I think that Kareem Hunt and what's going on there will be very, very interesting. But like I said, going back into this Chubb injury, my feelings on the hit, if you guys really do care about a kid who played football, who loves to talk about football, if you really do care about my opinions on the hit, I saw a lot of things online, people saying it was a dirty hit, people talking, people saying, all of this, was a dirty hit. How do you hit? The way the NFL has structured the league today, that hit is unavoidable. Minkah Fitzpatrick can't come in like a missile and hit him in the chest and give him that big blow that everyone loves to see. He's getting a flag thrown for that. You are now being taught to hit at the waist. or even worse, hit below and hit them knee. And that's what happens. And it's dangerous. It really is. When the way the NFL is going, they're trying to take stuff out of the game that only makes the game more dangerous, if I'm being completely honest. But nonetheless, I hope Chubb gets better. Um, I hope a speedy recovery for him. It is sadly a season ending injury in a big game. But yeah, it really is rough when you see something like that on a hit like that. When a player like Chubb too, who really gets going and really gets underway. But yeah, um, it's really, really good at what he's able to do. Um, yeah, it's really nice what he's able to do, and it really, really hurts for the Browns to lose a player like that and to, like I said, they signed Kareem Hunt, which is huge. But when you lose a player like Chubb, especially to an injury like that, it's obviously going to take a hit on your team. He's a 1,000-yard rusher. He's arguably the best running back in the league. He's hard to replace. You replace him with someone like Kareem Hunt, it's very smooth. It's very nice. He's going to fit into that offense well. He knows it. He played there a couple years ago. He likes the city of Cleveland. So it will work for him, and it will work for the Browns. I think it will all work out. The Browns got off to a good start this year, even losing that game. But I think that injury is going to be big. It hurts to see that, and it hurts, especially with the way the running back market is. Nick Chubb just got his money, and as a player and as a person and a fan who thinks the running back position is so valuable and so big, it sucks to see something like that that's going to hurt his value, especially after getting paid. It's going to scare people to pay other running backs, and it's really going to devalue the position. But I hope for a speedy recovery for him. It's a terrible situation and a terrible, terrible injury. Not only that, just running through the league again before I get into any details. Seahawks beat the Lions on a very, very entertaining game, an extremely entertaining game for Detroit and for the Seahawks. The Seahawks get a big win in overtime in a thriller. They get a good bounce back win after a week one loss. The Ravens moved to 0-2 while they pushed the Bengals to, or the Ravens moved to 2-0 while they pushed the Bengals to 0-2, which is huge for them. Huge for the Ravens in the division, huge for the Bengals in general. I'll definitely talk about that game. Atlanta moves to 2-0. The Saints move to 2-0. The Bucks move to 2-0. So very, very, very interesting week around the league. As I was saying, I want to talk about week 2 in depth, and especially going back to what I talked about at first. That Giants game, the first half was absolutely pitiful for the New York Giants and what they were doing. They threw an interception early off a drop pass, off an easy mistake that they did all week last week against the Cowboys, that you kind of just saw that. Saquon couldn't get going. He gets injured at the end of the game, but I'll get into that later. He couldn't really get going. And it looked like I said, down 20-0 at halftime to a very bad Cardinals team. A Cardinals team that is not very good. Their starting quarterback is Joshua Dobbs. The best player on their team or on their offense is Hollywood Brown. This is a very, very loose roster. This is not a good Cardinals team. I remember a Cardinals fan saying at the beginning of the year, they go, I don't even know if we're going to win a game this year. I don't know. And I thought this was going to be it for the Cardinals. I thought this was going to be their game. They were up 20-0 at halftime. But Dable goes into that locker room, gives the pep talk of his life, I'm assuming, to get fire under the butts of the Giants and get them really going. Daniel Jones had an exceptional second. If Daniel Jones can play how he played in that second half all year, the Giants are going to be what everybody thought the Giants were going to be, which is this team that's going to get going. And they're going to make minimal mistakes. You had Hyatt on that big, deep bomb for like 65 yards. Hopefully he could get going. He was a stud in training camp, an absolute speed demon. Waller was able to get going. He had 76 yards and I believe a score. So the Giants really in that second half put it all together. Like I said, Saquon really couldn't put it together at all in that game. He suffers that sprained ankle late. Luckily, it was only a sprained ankle. It looked like it could have been a lot worse. It looked like it could have been like what happened to Aaron with like an Achilles or or some type of tendon. Luckily, it was only a sprained ankle. He's currently week to week. I doubt he plays Thursday against San Francisco, but he is only week to week. So that's good news. On top, like in the bad news, there is a silver lining, and that is that Saquon could honestly play Thursday. I doubt he does, but like they said it's a possibility. He's questionable for Thursday night. So he's back by the latest week 4, which is huge for the Giants. And I spoke about this with the Giants too. This is just a huge win for them in general. The Giants couldn't really put much together as a team in that game. They were loose on it. In week 1 was really, really rough for the Giants. They lost 40-0 to the Cowboys. I mean, what else can I say except that? This was going into San Francisco this week is a very tough game. It's going to be probably a loss for the Giants, and I don't think it's going to be a good one. I think this is going to be kind of one like week 1 where you're kind of burying the football and you're going to leave it behind you. You're never going to talk about it again. I think that might happen to the Giants this week against San Francisco. But going into that game, you couldn't have done it 0-2 because then you possibly walk out of this week 0-3. And that's a lot scarier. I'll get into it with the Bengals before. 0-2 used to seem like this death sentence. Over the past couple of years, we've seen a team like the Bengals did it last year or 2 years ago. I've seen teams do it. I think the Giants did it last year. I think the Giants started 0-2 last year as well. The Lions started like 1-7 or 1-6 last year. You see a lot of these runs happening more often. So 0-2 isn't as much as a death sentence as 0-3 is. 0-3 is hard to come back from in the league. So you just end up with that. It was a huge win for the Giants to get that 31-28 win. Now they go into San Francisco, and it's going to be very, 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 very fun to watch in San Francisco. You get a team like that. You get a defense that's one of the best in the league, if not the best. It's San Francisco, Dallas, and the Jets are the 3 best defenses in the league. And then I think you got everyone else. Yeah. I think they have a lot to put together. The offense is definitely rough. The defense has the offensive line's got to get together and just play better. That's the main thing. The receivers have to create a little more separation. That hasn't been happening. That's why you see stuff like that first interception with Danny Dimes, where it wasn't necessarily his fault. He threw to his check down quick, but that receiver had no separation, was bumped into, ball gets tipped up, someone else catches it. That's a big problem for the Giants. Their receivers aren't great at separation. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they have a lot of stuff to fix. The linebackers aren't really doing it. The secondary, Xavier McKinney and those dudes don't really seem to be putting together. They seem to be getting beat on a lot of stuff they really shouldn't be. Like I said, that front 7 really needs to put it together. Giving up 106 yards to James Conner, of all people, is kind of rough. So you got to do better than that as the Giants defense. But if their offense can play any similar to the way that they did in that first half, they can start to put wins together, and I think they could start to fix themselves and get themselves up under themselves. Still talking about Sunday, back to that Seahawks-Lions game. Now, this one was an absolute thriller. I had a lot of ties to this game. I bet on this guy. I threw a parlay down that would have smacked clear if it wasn't for the damn Lions. You know, they 37-31 loss in overtime is a rough one, but a close loss nonetheless. Like I said, in overtime and a thriller. It was an absolute shootout. I think Jared Goff went 28 for 35. So that's 7 incomplete passes for Jared Goff throughout the whole game. I think at halftime he had 2. He played an absolute exceptional game out of Jared Goff. Amon-Ra St. Brown has 6 receptions, 102 yards. No dang touchdown, though. Really. The one time I bet on him to have a touchdown, guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, the one time, no, didn't happen. But he had 6 receptions, 102 yards. Josh Reynolds had a 2-touchdown game. The Lions put themselves together and was just outplayed by a Seahawks team that was willing to do dirt with them. They were willing to run it up. Both defenses didn't play well. Both offenses played very, very – Geno Smith, 32 41, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, and not an interception. Like, that is another exceptional game out of a quarterback. Tyler Lockett with a 2-touchdown game. Kenneth Walker with a 2-touchdown game on the ground. Only 50 yards, though, rushing. They were throwing the ball all over the place, and then he would get in the score. It was a very, very well put together little game there by the Seahawks. It was a much needed win after a loss to the Rams last week. But I think that otherwise, I think the Lions wanted to get to 2-0 very much. I think they needed to, especially with the Packers losing this week. I know I'm saying needed and wanted to a lot for week 2, but this is the stuff that actually late in the season proves futile, is what happens early in the year. So I think it could have been a good win for them to get, but nonetheless, they don't, in a very close game. Again, this was a game that could have gone either way. I remember saying that when I picked it. I know I picked the Lions and I was wrong, but it was an entertaining game. The Seahawks receiving core looked very well. You didn't see a lot out of Smith-Njigba. Lockett looked good. He did his thing. Like I said, got a couple of touchdowns like Lockett does, was able to create separation. DK was able to create some big plays, got open deep on a couple, did his thing, was burning people, looking like an absolute, tank out there consistently. And the Seahawks got a big win that put together, and they're trying to now really show that last year wasn't a fluke. Week 1 kind of looked, I think to a lot of people, looked like, oh, the Seahawks are going to die off. I think it's more the Rams are better than a lot of people think they are this year. I think the Rams are going to bounce back more than the Seahawks necessarily completely fall off. I think there's a couple wins that turn into losses or losses that turn into wins, like for each team, yes. But I don't think the Seahawks completely fall off this year. I think they're in a very, very, very good spot, and a very big win for them on Sunday over a good Lions team that has been on a run since the middle of last year, was able to squeeze into the playoff, or almost squeeze into the playoffs. Or I think they did. They beat the Packers in that last game. So they were able to squeeze into the playoffs last year and do a lot of things and get a lot of stuff under them. They've been on a roll. They got a lot of hype behind them. So going into Detroit and winning an overtime game is not easy at all, and it was very impressive what the Seahawks did there. They were able to put a lot together. Offensively, they looked very smooth. The defense, like I said, they got to fix some stuff. Both defensives looked like – it kind of looked like a Pac-12 game out there. If you guys have ever watched college football, kind of looked like a Pac-12 game out there with just all over the place, just left and right, just play and play, big play, big play. So it was definitely an entertaining game that the Seahawks squeeze out of and get out of a thriller in overtime in there in Detroit. Back to Monday night and the AFC North. I just want to talk about that division as a whole because it's really interesting now. I got into it before with Chubb that injury. That really writes the Browns off, at least for a little bit, until they figure out how Hunt fits into this offense well. Excuse me. And they really figure out how to adjust. But nonetheless, Deshaun Watson's been playing pretty well to start the season. I won't say he's been playing exceptional. Nowhere near what we saw back when he was in Houston before the whole incident. But Deshaun Watson is having a fairly solid start to the season here in Cleveland after, in my opinion, was a rough ending last year. Even though they lose, I didn't watch much of Monday night, so I can't talk much about how impressed I was with the Steelers' comeback. Because I did tune in. When I tuned in, it was fourth quarter. The Steelers were only down by like 3 at that point. And I know at one point, I think they were down by like 10 or 14 or something like that, something along those lines. So I don't have a lot to speak on, and I can't really grade the whole game. Pickett looked okay. He didn't look great. He looked okay. I think Pickens looked amazing. George Pickens with 1 touchdown. I think he had like a $120. I have it here in my notes. He had a $127. So George Pickens looked absolutely amazing. They got their rookie Jaylen Warren involved. He had 86 total yards on 10 total touches. So honestly, I feel like a solid game plan out of Matt Canada. Like, not a terrible game, especially after the complaints we saw out of Pittsburgh last year about how Canada didn't know how to call an offense. People were calling for his job all year last year. Looking at a performance where it was one of those wins that you're not celebrating this win necessarily for the Steelers, even though you did come back and get a big win. It was an ugly win. It was a very ugly win for Pittsburgh and how that offense looked. Pickett, like I said, I this is one of those games where I gotta more throw it on him than I do Matt Canada and that offense of how that way that was called, how that game was called. You go 15 for 30, like that's a rough game as a quarterback. You only completed 50% of your passes. He looked nervous from what I saw. It looked like that defense had him scared. I don't know how many sacks there were. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the number. But I think it's weird after what you saw because it kind of scares me for Kenny Pickett in his future. Does he look like a franchise quarterback after that game? Not at all. After the first 2 weeks of this season, can I say that Kenny Pickett looks like a franchise quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Not one bit. And that is what, as a Steelers fan, would scare me. That would definitely scare me a little bit, what I've seen in the first 2 weeks. Do I think Kenny Pickett could put it together? And do I think he has the skill set to become that franchise guy for Pittsburgh? 100%. But from what I've seen, it's not there yet. He's still nervous. He's still kind of antsy in the pocket. I remember Dan Orlovsky on the Pat McAfee show yesterday pointed out one specific play, and I'll use the same example because it is a good example. He throws an intercept. Kenny Pickett threw one interception, and when he threw that interception, it was on a slant route and he threw the slant route like you were running pass skeleton. If you guys know what that is, when you play, if you've ever played football, which is when you're running receivers versus air, no linemen, no defense. It's receivers versus air. Let's practice. Let's get our route running down. Let's do the skeleton. And as a quarterback, that's all. A lot of that is timing, and you don't got to read how the defense is pressing you and this and that. And on a slant route like he threw it, you'll go 1-2 look throw. It'll be a 1-2 quick look throw. And that's what he did when he threw that interception. But you have to read that. If you look at the play, the Steelers were in press coverage. So you have to give your receiver time to create separation. Pickett didn't do that. So it's little stuff like that. It's a lot of mental stuff for Kenny Pickett that I think could be taught and I think can be fixed, but it's not there yet. Moving on in the same division, though, the Bengals and Ravens game was by far one of the most interesting games of the week. The Ravens squeeze it out and win by 3. But the Bengals moving to 0-2, a lot of people seem very, very panicked. I'm not necessarily slamming that big red button yet. I'm not necessarily, calling it in, calling the sirens yet. What scares me more about this 0-2 than the other 0-2 Bengal team we saw, I believe it was 2 years ago. Might have been last year. I don't remember, but I believe it was 2 years ago. I think they went 1-1 last year. But was Ja'Marr Chase was still doing his thing through those first 2 weeks last year. That's the big thing. This Bengals offense is extremely slow. Mixon isn't putting it together. He's had a very slow start to the year. The O-line isn't doing great. T. Higgins had himself a game, but Ja'Marr Chase has 90 yards through 2 weeks. This is a man we're sitting here putting up there with Justin Jefferson, who's having 100-yard halves. Justin Jefferson had 100 yards in the first half of his week 1 and week 2 games. Ja'Marr Chase doesn't have 100 yards between the 2 weeks, period. So Ja'Marr Chase, him missing is the big sign for this Bengals and that offense being as slow as it is. Has Ja'Marr gotten figured out? I don't know. This was another game I didn't see much of. It wasn't a game that Red Zone went to a lot. And then in my split view, it wasn't one of the 3 games I happened to watch in the 1 o'clock window this week. But Ja'Marr Chase being missing through the first 2 weeks of this year is the thing that really has my sights going for this Bengals offense. And that's what's been that's what's been setting off the alarm bells in my head is Mixon isn't putting it together. You have Higgins making plays, but you usually had Higgins getting that, 70 to 80 yards a game with Ja'Marr Chase being Ja'Marr and being that stud that he usually was with Joey Ice, with Joe Burr and all that. But you don't see it. Joe Burr looks real cold these days. He really does. He looks real cold these days. And it's not the Bengals team just isn't putting it together. And on the flip side, the Ravens are doing the exact opposite. That Ravens offense is really, really, really rolling. Lamar Jackson had a good day. He's looking good, moving with his legs, looks healthy, looks comfortable, slinging the ball all over the place, had 2 touchdowns through the air, was running all over the place, had 54 yards on the ground. He had a very good day. Gus Edwards, he's always going to do his thing. I think a lot of people like to panic when people go down in injuries, and I'm not saying that J.K. Dobbins being injured is not a terrible thing. I don't want to see anyone get injured. But Gus Edwards is a very viable backup for the Ravens, and he did a very good job in there. He got himself a touchdown, and the Ravens pushed to 2-0. They're the only 2-0 team now in this division, with the Bengals and Pittsburgh, or with Bengals being 0-2, and now Pittsburgh and Cleveland both sitting at 1-1. They're one of the only 2-0 teams in the AFC, which not a lot of people expected that to be a thing. And that's one thing that's crazy. You look at the teams that are at the top of the league right now. Going into the year, if you told me Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Washington, we're all going to be 2-0, I would have laughed in your face, honestly. I honestly would have. But I think we got like 8 2-0 teams right now. And I think 4 or 5 of them are in the NFC right now. We got Dallas, Philly, Washington, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa. Or Philly's 1-1, aren't they? I'm sorry. Are they? No, Philly's 2-2 or 2-0. Right? Let me check this. Yeah, Philly's 2-0. Philly's 2-0. So yeah, you got Philly, Dallas, Washington, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa, all 2-0 in the NFC. That's 6 of them right now. And San Francisco at 2-0. And then in the AFC, you got the Ravens, you got the Dolphins at 2-0. That's really it. It's weird. It's really weird to see that. Not a lot of people expected that going into this year. And the NFC's really been running it early. A lot of teams look really good. Moving on to Atlanta, that game was really interesting. They squeeze out of that one with a big, big win. A lot of risks there out of what's his name? I'm blanking on the head coach's name with the stash, but he got that risky 4th down call. He's got some kahunas on him, man. You're down by, 2, I think, at that point? You're down by 2. You got a 4th and 1 at your own, I think it was your own 14, and you go for it. Man, what a call out of them to be able to really kill the clock and really get going there. And get a big win for Atlanta, a win that I did not think that they were going to get at all, really. You guys heard me talk about it last week. I really thought the Packers were going to go into Atlanta and manhandle them, especially out of what I've seen out of Atlanta the past few years. But really seeing it this Sunday against Green Bay, really it finally clicking all the names that are there. Atlanta seems to be a little scary because I was focusing on the offensive side. That's not where they're scary. This Atlanta defense is scary, man. They got Calais Campbell. They got what's his name also, that other D-end I can't remember the name of on the other side. They got, I think it's Ioditis in the middle, or Onyemata. It might be David Onyemata actually playing DT. You got AJ Terrell. They just signed what's his name? Justin Simmons too. I'm pretty sure from Cincinnati, or not Justin Simmons. You know who I mean? The safety. I can't remember his name. Wow, I'm blanking on names today. But the Falcons defense is very, very, very good. And it's going to hold a lot of offenses like this Green Bay offense and Jordan Love, who like that offense. Missing Aaron Jones, I will say that they were missing Aaron Jones, which is a huge part of that Green Bay offense. But Jordan Love in that offense didn't look bad. Like, I wish Dobbs got a touchdown, but Dobbs got going. Dobbs had a good game. Like, he had a bunch of yards. You had Dontavius Wicks. His name popped onto the scene. He had a couple big receptions for the Packers. So the Packers were able to really get going in this game, but that Falcons defense really came up big, and Bijan Robinson and that offense make a big play late on that fourth down that really could have proved it could have that fourth down could have lost them the game, obviously. But like no joke, like calling that call and being like, I would rather trust my defense to get another stop than give the ball back with this much time. I think there's so much trust in your team to make that call. Not only trust in your defense, but because you could flip it to say like, well, you don't trust your defense to get the stop with a minute left, but like that's so much. That's so ballsy. What a call. What a big call and what a big win for the Falcons. Honestly, gets them that win. Gets a big win. Moves Atlanta to 2-0 in a division that's built with 2-0 juggernauts. I'll call them right now, but a big win for Atlanta. Staying in the AFC South, the Bucs also got a big win against the Bears, who Justin Fields had the biggest flip-flop of a game I've ever seen. And I'm starting to be scared that this is like going to become a confidence thing. I think he just needs a new situation because I think I see the talent. I think everyone sees the talent. There's a lot of talent there. Justin Fields is an extremely talented individual. He's extremely athletic. He's got an arm. He's decently accurate. The play calling just isn't there. You look like that screen that he threw the pick six on. I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know if that's play calling. I don't know if that's Justin Fields just being nervous, but that interception ends up losing the game for the Bears, and just a terrible second half out of Justin Fields and a Bears team that, you got take shots, man. They don't take they just keep. You're not going to win games by just checking it down and hoping that works, because eventually they're going to load the box and you're going to run some stupid play like that screen and something stupid is going to happen. You can't win the game. Take some shot. You just traded for DJ Moore. You traded the number 1 overall pick for this wide receiver pretty much. Use him. Use him. Use the weapons you got. Use Chase Claypool. Use the weapons that you built around Justin Fields. Don't play call him to leave him in the dust and check down every time, and just use the talent you have. But nonetheless, they lose. They moved to 0-2, a Bears team that I genuinely thought was actually going to be pretty solid this year. But they aren't. They aren't. And then to end my NFC South kind of little rant here, the Saints on Monday night, they get a big win. They didn't look great. I won't say they did. They didn't look great. Michael Thomas seems to be getting back into fashion. I could break down. I watched every minute of that Saints game. I could break down the whole game for you. Obviously, my breakdown is going to be on the Saints. To talk about the Panthers for what I can, because these are just important parts. When it comes to the league. Bryce Young does really. Anthony Richardson seems to be the guy from this draft class as of the moment. But I don't doubt that Bryce Young is going to be good in this league. He has the poise. He has the decision-making. He's comfortable in the pocket. He's accurate. He makes smart decisions. He gets rid of the ball. He doesn't really hold on to the ball all that much. So he does a very, very very good job there. He has weapons around him with Thielen, who had a great game. I don't think Thielen necessarily is going to be the dude that he was 5, 6 years ago. So I don't know if you could put that on him. But you have a lot of young weapons for the Panthers that really make it interesting. And like I said, Bryce Young seems to really be putting it together. I think he's going to be a good player in the league. He didn't win. He's 0-2 right now. He hasn't won yet, but it was 2 close games against 2 very, very, I think 2 top 5 defenses. I talked about the top 3, and I think the Saints, Falcons, I think the Dolphins might be up there a little bit. I threw out the Cowboys, obviously. But Bryce Young has had a very, very rough 2 weeks, especially with the defenses that he's been playing. And so I don't think you should really be putting a panic or a bust label on him yet just because he's 0-2. But yeah, I'm saying but a lot, man. Sorry, guys. I hope you like the word. But see, there I go again. Back to the Saints, though. The Saints, they definitely had a great game. Not a great game. They had a game, though, and a good one. They had a good game. I'll say that. Not a great game, a good game. Derek Carr seems to be the same Derek Carr, which I was not really hoping of. I was kind of hoping we would see a more improved Derek Carr in New Orleans with a better O-line, with more weapons, with better coaching. But same thing with that Bears offense. I think Dennis Allen calls a lot of them dink and dunks and Derek Carr likes to do it too. And that's not necessarily what's going to work. What the Saints are built on and what we've been built on through even back to the Sean Payton era. And Dennis Allen is Sean Payton's underling. He's his little dude. So I would hope this would continue. And because this is what the Saints' success is built on. When the Saints are rolling, we run play action. We go under the center and we run play action. And we're gonna give it to Kamara. Boom. We're gonna give it to Jamal Williams, who's injured. By the way, Kenadre, I think it is, or Kendre Miller from the Saints. Pick him up in your fantasy leagues. He will definitely be getting a good amount of touches next week, along with buddy from Monday night that I can't remember the name of. But with the Jamal Murray injury, he seems to be out at least a week or two. So definitely for the Saints this Sunday, people pick up those 2 players. But that's what the Saints are built on, and that's not really what they're getting to. They're doing a lot of the short stuff, which I don't like. I think we should get back to that run, that play action type of offense because it opens up a lot of opportunities in the pass game. I think Derek Carr can really fit into that offense very well. That play action, give it to Kamara here or Jamal Williams, whoever's healthy at the time. Then under center we're gonna run a slant play, and then we're gonna run it again, and then we're gonna run that play action play. And that play action play ain't no short play. It's Carr play action over the top to like a what's his name? Raheed Shaheed, someone speedy like that. You just throw it over the top. That's what the Saints were built on. That's what we do when we're rolling. So I hope we get back to that. I think our offense would look really well like that. But nonetheless, Saints get a big win, a big division win in Carolina to move to 2-0 and technically first or second in that division with a division win now. And yeah, huge. And now before I pull up my phone and do the good old spreads and talk about my record, I do want to look back at last week and talk about this week, the Log Show, Logan Dog of the Week. And there are a lot of people that I could definitely throw in for this award this week. Chubb, I do want to give credit to because he was rolling, and Ford, because him able to come in and do what he was able to do after that Nick Chubb injury was amazing. I could say Geno Smith for getting that big win over the Lions, pushing them to 1-1. Lamar Jackson did his thing. Bijan Robinson had an absolute unreal game. Michael Thomas and Chris Olave, I could combine them. But I got to give credit where credit is due. And this week's dog of the week is going to go to New York's own Daniel Jones. I am not a Giants fan, but what Daniel Jones and the Giants were able to do in that second half, I talked about it a lot earlier. It was unreal for them to be able to come back down 20-0 at halftime, battle back, make no mistakes. Daniel Jones was slinging it through the air, found Hyatt deep right out of halftime to really get them going, light some fire under them, and really just get them rolling. Daniel Jones is my log show dog of the week. And now we move on. Week 2 is behind us. We move on to tomorrow night. It's Thursday night. We have a Thursday night game tomorrow. And then from there, from Thursday night, we move into Sunday, and then we move into Monday. And we have a lot going on in the league. We have 8 2-0 teams, as I talked about before. 7 of which, we have 9 2-0 teams, 7 of which are in the NFC. We have a couple 0-2 teams, some of them matching off this week. It'll be an amazing week. And now we get into the predictions. I am pulling up my phone right now. You guys know the whole deal. I pull up the odds. I pull up the lines live and tell you who I feel is going to win the spread and win the game. So starting on Thursday, we got San Francisco -10. We got the Giants traveling into San Francisco, getting 10 points for the New York Giants here. Personally, I'm going to take San Francisco just straight through and through in this game. It kind of is what it is. Like I said, the Giants played a great game last week, but San Francisco is one of the best teams in the league. They are an actual juggernaut. Like when I said 2-0 juggernauts before, some of those teams are actually juggernauts. And San Francisco is 120% one of them. I think and at home, Giants coming off a big win. I think the Giants could make it competitive. 10 points is a lot to give up. And I really want to give Giants the spread here. So part of me wants to say that, but it's hard for me to bet against the 49ers. They've beaten everyone by 10-plus points so far this year. They beat Pittsburgh by like 30. They beat the Rams by like 20. So I'm going to take San Francisco through and through. Oh, and also, by the way, I forgot to say this. Last week, I was 12-4 overall, 10-6 versus the spread. I wasn't able to figure out my week 1 stats, so I won't know when I do against the spread, it will always be minus that week 1 game, that week 1. But I am 10-6 currently against the spread, and I am for Thursday night taking the San Francisco 49ers not only to win, but to cover the 10 points. Another big game for a New York team. We got the Patriots traveling into MetLife to play the New York Jets. Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. Now, the Patriots are giving up 2.5 points to the Jets here at home. And that, honestly, that makes this really interesting. Because I think the Jets honestly could win this game. I do. And I think a lot of people are counting them out. A lot of people feel that Zach Wilson, I think a lot of people feel like Zach Wilson and that whole shabagle over there is going to get nervous against Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick usually has success against these young quarterbacks, but I'm not going to lie. I'm going to take the Jets. I'm going to take the Jets. I'm going to take the Jets to cover. I'm going to take them to win outright, too. I'm going to take the Jets to honestly win that game, which means they cover. So, yeah, give me the Jets over the Patriots on Sunday. I think Zach Wilson could do a lot. You got weapons. You got Breece Hall. You got Garrett Wilson. You got a lot of weapons there. I think they could definitely do it. Moving on, the next game I got on my FanDuel over here is the Tennessee Titans traveling into Cleveland to play the Cleveland Browns, who are coming off a rough Monday night loss and a rough loss of Nick Chubb. They are giving the Titans 3 points here after a big win. The Titans also a big win last week over why is it slipping my mind who the Titans played last week? They played they played the Chargers. Big win against the Chargers last week in a very, very close game. They end up, I think it was a game-winning field goal, if I do remember, or it might have been an overtime game. But it was a very close game. Cleveland, coming off a tough loss, you do just lose Nick Chubb. And I don't know. I think a big bounce-back game this week for the Cleveland Browns. I'll take the Browns -3 at home over the Tennessee Titans, 110%. That's just my personal opinion, though. Chargers travel into Minnesota to play the 0-2 Vikings, the battle of the bums this week with my battle of the 0-2 teams. This one's interesting. The Chargers, these are two good 0-2 teams. That's why I find this as interesting as it is. The Chargers lost to the Titans last week, and week one, I'm blanking again at who they lost to, but it was another team where it was like, it was a solid team. I think it was the Raiders. That's who they lost to, which is a divisional game. Always going to be a close game. But I think a lot of people, the Vikings -1.5 at home. It's a close spread. I think the Vikings are really trying to bounce back again, like I said, after starting 0-2. Give me the Vikings in this one to cover. I think Jamar Chase has a game. Mattinson gets going. Hopefully that defense could really figure out what the hell is going on. That would be really, really helpful for them. Yeah, give me the Vikings. Give me the Vikings. Bills, Commanders. The Commanders are getting 6 points at home over the Bills. I'm going to take the Bills to win 100%. I'm definitely taking the Bills to win this game. But I think that I am going to take the Commanders to cover. I like the Commanders a lot this year. They're 2-0. They've been putting together a lot of wins. Antonio Gibson looks good. Brian Robinson Jr. looks absolutely like a stud. He looks like a beast this year. Not only that, you have a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, the Commanders do look really good. You got Scary Terry making amazing plays. You saw that. If anybody saw that one catch, Scary Terry's unreal. So I'm going to take the Commanders to cover, Bills to win. Houston at Jacksonville. I'm going to take the Jaguars through and through. Jacksonville's getting 8.5 points here. Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. But Houston's not good. Houston is just not good. There's not a lot I could say about that. And I feel bad for C.J. Stroud having to be stuck there because he doesn't look terrible, but your best receiver is being like Tank Dell and Nico, whatever his name is. I'm blanking on him too. But rough team there in Houston. They're honestly just as bad as I think Arizona is. So give me Jacksonville straight up to cover and to win this game at home. Indianapolis is going into Baltimore and getting 7.5 points. Now, this one I think is more interesting. I'll take the Ravens through and through if Anthony Richardson doesn't play this week because I know he was in concussion protocol, so I don't know if he's out this week. In all honesty, though, I think the Ravens are going to – I think with Anthony Richardson – so remember that part before you guys yell at me next week if Anthony Richardson doesn't win and you lose your money on the Colts. With Anthony Richardson, I take the Colts to cover. Without him, I don't. With Anthony Richardson, I think the Colts cover. I think the Colts can make this a game. Their defense, pretty solid. You got Shaq Leonard. You got a lot of people there on the defense who are really good. And then on top of that, you got honestly, I really like that offense, even without Jonathan Taylor. So a very good O-line. I think they can make this close. I really do. Atlanta going into Detroit, getting 3.5 points. I'm going to take Atlanta. Hurts to say as a Saints fan. I'm going to take Atlanta in this one. 100%. From what I saw last week against Green Bay, I think they have the ability to stop this Detroit offense. And this Detroit defense is just not good, man. I think Bijan Robinson could really, really, really rip them up and have a day. I'm going to take Atlanta plus 3.5 going into Detroit. My boys, the New Orleans Saints, travel into Lambeau this week to play the Green Bay Packers. I think the Saints are going to win this game, especially after what I saw out of the Packers last week. Packers don't have much, really. Jordan Love's good, man. Jordan Love is good at football. Jordan Love's good. But if they don't got Aaron Jones this week, the Saints defense is better than the defense that Jordan Love struggled against somewhat struggled against last week. I think he'll struggle more against the Saints defense. I think Lambeau's going to play a part in it. There's a lot that's going to play a part in it. It's going to be a close game. Give me the Saints to win and cover here on Sunday. We got Denver at Miami. I think this one's pretty simple. Give me Miami to win and to cover minus 6.5. Denver's not terrible this year, but I don't think they've figured it out yet. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. So definitely give me Miami here at home. Carolina going into Seattle. This one gets tough now. Carolina going into Seattle is tough. I don't think Carolina's that bad. I do not think Carolina. Give me Carolina. Carolina needs the bounce back game after starting 0-2. There's obviously all surprises. I've been picking a lot of favorites today, but besides like the Saints getting 2, and I think I picked the Colts to get to cover, but they're not going to win. Give me the Panthers, honestly, to win this game, not just to cover. I think the Panthers might squeeze out a win here in Seattle against the Seahawks with Bryce Young and that offense I was talking about before that's really getting it together. Chicago going into Kansas City. This one isn't even fair. I'm going to be honest. I remember seeing an ad for this on Sunday, and I was like, damn, Kansas City really got away with an easy beginning schedule. And that Lions game was the toughest one, and they really needed to win it to get off to a run. They could have got off. I think they could get off to like a 7-1 start. If they beat the Lions, they could have got off to like an 8-0. They could have gone on a run, this Kansas City team. They are giving 12.5 points against Chicago this week in Arrowhead as well. As much as I want to say the Bears are going to cover, 12.5 points in the men's league is a lot, man. That's a lot. It's a lot. It means I'm guaranteeing the Chiefs are going to win by 2 touchdowns. That's a lot. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are just that good. They are. Bears are just that bad. The Chiefs are just that good. Give me the Chiefs to win and somehow cover this 12.5 point. Actually, scratch that. It just clicked as I was saying. Chiefs cover the spread. The Chiefs never cover the spread, especially early in the year. This is going to be a close game. Betting people, take the Bears. Bet on the Bears to cover, not to win, to cover. Don't bet on the money line. Bet on the Bears plus 12.5. The Chiefs never cover. Another 12.5 point spread. Dallas going into Arizona. This one, I think you bet on the 12.5. I think I bet on Dallas here. I think I give the points. Arizona's really bad. Really bad. You blew a 20-0 lead to the New York Giants. That's bad. As good as the Giants looked, that's bad. That's bad. So, give me the Cowboys, 100% there. Give me the Cowboys to move to 3-0 and get a really good start to this year. Pittsburgh going into Vegas, getting 2.5 points. This one is interesting because I think we have 2 very similar teams here, of teams that Is it coaching? Is it quarterback play? What's the struggle? Who knows? It's like will they, won't they? Of one day Kenny Pickett plays well, and Matt Canada will call the worst game he's ever coached as a professional coach. And then Matt Canada will look like an offensive god, and Kenny Pickett looks like he picked up a football for the first time yesterday. So, I'm a big fan of that Steelers defense. Plus, what's going on in Vegas with all that, with like Chandler, what's going on with Chandler Jones in the front office and Josh Jacobs, even though he got his extension. And give me Pittsburgh to cover and win walking into Vegas this week. Philly at Tampa Bay on Monday night. Wow. Ooh, this one's interesting. 2-2-0 teams. Interesting enough. This is a battle of 2-2-0 teams. I think we're going to see the echelon here. They are giving 4.5 points, and I think this game could get close with the way that the Tampa Bay defense has been playing, the way Mike Evans has been playing, the way Baker Mayfield has been playing. Tampa could 120% make this a really close game. So, I don't know. Give me the Eagles to cover. Give me the Eagles to cover. Give me the Tampa to win, Eagles to cover. And then the final game of this week will be the LA Rams walking in to Cincinnati for a rematch of the Super Bowl 2 years ago and playing the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. The Rams are getting 2.5 points here. I don't see, and I said this last week, so maybe I'm wrong again. I don't see the Bengals losing. I don't see the Bengals lose. I can't see the Bengals starting 0-3. As much as I could have somewhat seen them starting 0-2, I cannot at all see the Bengals starting 0-3. At all. I think going into this week, they have to be focused. You got to get Jamar Chase going. You're playing a Rams team that's not bad, but they're really not that good. So I'm going to and final game of this week to end that, I'm going to take the Bengals to not only win, but cover. And that's all I got for week 3. Week 3 is going to be a doozy, guys. I mean, like I said, a lot of injuries happened last week. Saquon's not playing this week. Jamal Williams got out last week. The gruesome Chubb injury. Defensive side of the ball, there was a couple. Minkah Fitzpatrick also got injured Monday night. So the league is really starting to shape up, and we're starting to really see who's the bounce back teams, who's the good teams. Identities are really starting to be shown here, and week 3 is only going to insinuate that more, and I really can't wait to get going. Sadly, next week I will not have a fight to lead off the show with you guys with. There is no big UFC fight this week, sadly, but my God, do we got a lot coming up in that world too in November with, like I said, 94 and UFC 95 coming up. I'm assuming fight nights will be scheduled within throughout that and throughout that whole thing and throughout the planning. We'll see more fights, more of what's in 295, more of what's in 294. And like I said, just week 3 seems to be exciting. It seems to be a huge week this week with all those injuries. And I can't wait to see it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is The Log Show, and I will catch everybody next week.